Oh yeah,
Gives you the feels every time, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It's like chills.
Yeah. Well, I will say, like speaking of chills, it is like a gazillion degrees here in New England right now, and I see me in that picture of the scarf made me warm. Just seeing it pop on the screen, dude. Like I can't handle it right now. We're not used to it up here, but what we are used to, everybody, is this show every Wednesday, 1 p.m. We do a best ball draft with the family. It gets us together to talk ball. It gives us an idea of what the ADPs and the values are going to be like because this isn't too far off from what you're going to see. And it gets us together with smart people to figure out what they're doing and ask them some questions, right? Today, special show because we're going head to head, baby. The Fantasy Alarm folks against the RotoWire folks. We got on not just Jim Coventry, but also Alan Seslowski will be joining us. They're in the draft with us, and they'll be joining us on the show. Two guys that Howard and I are very familiar with. They tee us off all last year on Sunday morning on Sirius XM. They were 9 to 10, and we were 10 to 11. Right? That was it, Howard.
That was definitely it, and huge fan of obviously RotoWire. My fantasy roots kind of stemmed in RotoWire when I was working over there. Neither Coventry nor Seslowski were there at the time that I was there, so there was no overlap. But I absolutely love those guys, and I love the fact that they're jumping in on this best ball draft because I mean, listen, after all. This is all for you guys out there, and we appreciate you joining us here on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. Please hit that like button, subscribe to us so you never miss a show. We're going to be ramping up more shows, more content as the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide drops. And just so that you guys know, Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide launches, that's right, end of this month. That's right, next week. Next week, you're going to have your mitts on the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide. If you don't subscribe, do yourself a favor. Zap that QR code or go to fantasyAlarm.com/win. Use the promo code Let's Go. We'll give you 50% off your first month. That means you get the draft guide. That means you get the cheat sheet. You get Coop's best ball cheat sheet. You get everything across all sports, season-long DFS and betting. It is the ultimate subscription. You definitely want a piece of that. So, again, thank you so much for being here. And Coop, how about we? Should I jump into this draft? Should I start us off here? What do you
get it going? Let's get it fired up, and we'll get it started. I'll let everybody know what the deal is, what's going on for those just joining us, and then we'll bring in the enemies. I see we already have folks behind enemy lines here. Joe Bartel rooting for Team RotoWire. Unbelievable. But we got some folks here and done icy through repping FA Nation. So I think we outnumber them with the family. We cannot let these guys win. So if I don't win, if Howard doesn't win, somebody from Fantasy Alarm's got to win this. And I'll tell you, we brought in some big guns here. Picking off at number 1 is going to be Mile High Luke Costell. I'm going 2. Drafting 3rd is our guy, Jack Straw. His name's Kismet on the screen here when it comes up. He's the only guy besides myself that won 2 of these last year. So he saw the post go out. He saw the horn go out, and he had to come and fight the good fight against the bad guys here. We have Rotobuzz guy, Howard Bender at 5. Rotobuzz guy at 4. Sigma at 5. Voico at 6. Alan Seslowski at 7. And back-to-back with Jim Coventry at 8. So those guys are all grouped together. We got a new player joining us. Hasn't done one of these with us before. Lego, my ego getting in there. Then we wrap it up with Rock and Roll Ray, Hamburglar, and another regular, of course, Icy Through. Can't have a best ball draft on Wednesday without Icy, right, Howard?
That is true. Icy Through You, aka Justin. I know who you are.
See you.
Always great to have him here. He's always inactive on the live streams, whether it's MLB or NFL. So absolutely love that. And if you're streaming us on Twitter, hey, man, or X, whatever you want to call it. Thanks so much for being here. We got you guys 100% smothered and covered. I'm on the clock right now. Coop, is the screen big enough for you right now?
It is. And, it's big enough for me. It's big enough for the commenter last week that said, what is this, a screen for ants? Right? So now you can see what's going on here. Mile High Luke drafting at home, crushing. Howard Bender on the clock. And luckily for me, Victor, not next to me in this draft. He's next to you, Howard. So he can snipe you in this one. Leave me alone a little bit. For those that maybe still can't see, even though we zoomed it in for you, draft started off Bijan Robinson at 1, which to me, Howard, that's one where if that's a guy you want, take him. And I have no problem with that. Absolutely no problem with that. Like if you're trying to max out best ball mania and do a bunch of that stuff, then maybe you don't take him there. You just take him, whenever you get that spot. But if you only have one draft and it's your hometown draft, and that's the guy you want, you got to take him at 1 because you're not going to get him, right? You're not going to get him. And the same goes for all these guys. And like last year, if we had CeeDee Lamb very high in our wide receiver rankings, if you wanted him, you had to take him. And he finished the wide receiver 1. So that's how it goes in the first round. You can take any one of these guys if that's who you want. That's my opinion.
Yeah. We talk about it all the time, right? You get like these first 8 picks and it's a matter of preference and order, not always talent, right? So to see Bijan go number 1 here, I love it. I mean, did you get the feels? Did you get the hair stand on the back of your neck that you get to take Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, I was excited. Yeah, that was the real. All that stuff I just said. That was just sugarcoating my real feelings, which is that I love anyone picking anyone else so I can get McCaffrey.
Now this is locked in, and we see all of these same names, and obviously the different order there. The back end is always where you see like some interesting things start to happen. Like some of the, you'll see like maybe like a Puka Nakul pop up or something like that, or whatever. But like Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson, they seem to be 2 of the guys who do stand up a lot. You know what? The draft board is too big here, Coop. Because
that's too big. Now it's too big.
Everybody.
So we gotta dial it back ever so slightly. I think
is that
that'll
okay?
Do it. That'll do it right there. And we'll do our best for those listening, whether you're working, whether you're doing at home, to let you know if anybody goes in a weird spot, if anyone's doing crazy strategies. We're gonna call it out for you guys. The chat already calling it out. I love this one here.
I just broke it.
Joe comes in. What'd you break?
I think I just broke something on my computer.
Oh, great.
Oh, there we go.
Joe comes. That's the perfect size right there. Joe comes in the chat, says, predicting that Jim takes AJ Brown at 8. And sure enough, 8th pick comes up. Jim Coventry takes AJ Brown. Probably no better time than now to bring our first guest in. And let's find out why Jim Coventry likes AJ Brown so much. Jim, how you doing, brother?
Oh, man, great to be here. Great day to talk football and a better day to draft.
Yes, let's go, baby.
What's up, Jim? Man, I'm always, I'm always a guest on one of your streams, so it's great to have you here. You always run those marathon streams, so super excited to have you here as well. As Coop just said, yeah, AJ Brown. It seems to be a little bit of a polarizing guy. Kellen Moore's system in there. I was talking about on the Fantasy Alarm show yesterday, so I won't share my thoughts here. I want to hear why you are in on AJ Brown enough to take him at 8 overall in the first round.
Yeah, I'm excited that people are sleeping on AJ Brown. They saw that second half of last season, and I think they gave up on him. But realistically, whether it was Steichen calling the offense or it was Brian Johnson, once teams figured out the Eagles just wanted to throw deep, teams just kind of put a shell up, and the Eagles had no answers. AJ Brown was on pace for almost 2,000 yards before they got figured out. Well, now you bring in Kellen Moore, like you said. And what Kellen Moore does, he starts the offense by working downfield and then opening things up underneath. And A.J. Brown is that I consider him tied with 3 other players for the best receiver in the NFL. You got Tyreek Hill, you've got Jamar Chase, you got Justin Jefferson, and I also think A.J. Brown's in that mix. They just do it different ways. But A.J. Brown, the 2-year average in Philly is like 1,475 yards. Sign me up for that all day long. But remember, that goes with a horrible second half. That's not getting repeated. And if you were going to tell me A.J. Brown comes out this year with 1,700 yards, I would not be surprised for a second because he's finally going to get the alpha treatment he always should have had.
Yeah, and one thing I love about A.J. Brown is how easy he makes things for his quarterback. Like you go back and watch a lot of those highlights, those balls aren't perfectly placed. They're not, it's not like some of those, Peyton Manning or Tom Brady balls. He comes back and rips those out of guys' hands, and then he makes the guy miss and makes the big play. That's the difference between, honestly, A.J. Brown and a guy like DK Metcalf, is you go in and you look at the contested catches and the broken tackles, right? Like that's when you get one guy has 7 broken tackles, the other guy has 17. That's the difference in the yak. That's the difference in those two players.
Yeah, and listen, and I think that it's always kind of funny because when you look at Kellen Moore's offense and what he likes to do, he likes to, he doesn't dump it off to the running back and too much passing there, but he loves using the power run to set up the pass. And now he's got Saquon Barkley there, and I'm sure some people are going to be pissing and moaning that Saquon Barkley's not catching enough passes, but he's going to get a ton of work. And Kellen Moore is going to lean heavily on him, which is just going to open things up more for Moore's system to hit the downfield and the intermediate shots to Brown and Devonta Smith. So big fan overall.
Yeah, I'm interested to see now, Jim. I love talking to Jim because he's a real life football guy first and foremost, and you use that to come up with your fantasy takes, which I think is the best way to do it because there's too much fantasy wishing in the other world. You know what I mean? You're a realist. One thing we've seen from Nick Sirianni, tons of screens, not so much to the running backs, but the wide receivers and tight ends. Kellen Moore does throw a little more screens to the running back. Do you think it kind of stays the same in terms of the distribution, or can Barkley pick up some of that slack and kind of improve that spot for the running back? Like, are you drafting Barkley? Do you think he gets more targets, or are you staying away?
So I don't think the targets are going through the roof, but unlike Barkley's days in New York, where he was facing stacked boxes because there was nobody for the defense to worry about, didn't care about the receivers, the quarterback, the tight end. So Barkley just saw so much attention. Well, now we have him in this situation where Barkley's going to be in great shape because he's not seeing a loaded box, not with the trio of pass catchers they have, and also knowing Hurts has those RPO tendencies, and those are massive because once we start talking RPO tendencies, that is a major, major deal. So all that said,
on the clock, buddy.
Yeah, I'm clicking it. I'm clicking it.
Yeah, click it. All right. I just didn't want you to get auto pick there.
I actually timed that. I timed that question exactly to distract you. I was like, oh, here comes Jim. Might as well dump a question.
Dude, this 30-second clock, I get nailed with like at least 2 auto picks every show. I'm like doing everything I can. I've got my windows all set up differently right now so that I don't get bumped on that.
Oh, the first show of the year this year, we got crushed by the clock. Now we were now I set up a battle station. I get a coffee ready, and we're back on track. But still, it gets me at least once a draft here. Now, Jim, we've had a lot of different overarching strategies come on the show and talk to us. Like we've had some of the zero RB bros come on that basically say, hey, you know what? Like I am a zero RB guy. I will take, a Christian McCaffrey, but whenever I do that, I go hero RB. And we've also had some people that have come on and say, hey, you know what? With the shift, I'm drafting a ton of RBs. Do you have a strategy that you kind of lean into or not even lean into, but that you see yourself ending up with more of, or are you just pure value? Like what's your take on this landscape?
Look, I prefer to take wide receivers early. And in this draft, I did take Barkley in the second round. The way the board fell, I just didn't like the receivers at that specific spot. But I have been commonly going 2 or 3 wide receivers off the bat. And there's an occasional draft or so when I'll go with a 4th receiver. I believe there's a number of running backs that you could get in the middling rounds that are going to be very good values. People are devaluing them for many different reasons. But I really think wide receiver early is a very good value play this year. And I'm coming up in one more pick, so I better get ready for this one.
Well, let me ask you about this pick coming up here because, listen, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen is off the board. Provided that Lego man here doesn't, turn around and steal your thunder. How do you feel about stacking in best ball drafts? Because this is a contained draft. This is just, us right here. This isn't like the best ball mania where you're doing, the full tournament.
Yeah. Stacking in a single league is just coincidental. And like in this one, I have Barkley and Brown. That was not the intention. Top guy on my board, went with it, real happy with it. But you're like you said, Howard, if you're not playing in what I call a jackpot league, a large tournament, there is no reason in my mind to have to stack.
Yeah. I listen, I kind of went the same way there. I took Jalen Waddle with my second pick after taking Tyreek. Obviously Tua will be in the mix later on down the road. The reason I took Waddle, though, is just because of the ADP. I actually preferred DK Metcalf there, but I thought Metcalf would make it on his way back here to me. But yeah, I mean, listen, am I like running, to bang down the door and stack Tua with this crew? Probably not. I mean, I'll end up doing something.
You're on the clock.
that, but I know.
Yeah.
Don't rush me. Don't you rush me.
I just want you auto picked. I'm looking out for a friend, man. That's all. Even though I was openly called the enemy when we started this show. I heard that. I did.
The enemy was it speaks softly and carries a knife. Whatever that tweet was from the classic wide receiver tweet. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I only use it as a tiebreaker. And I'll also, the thing is, when you use it as a tiebreaker or just kind of let it fall into place, you feel so much better about it. Like there's nothing better than playing it straight in most of your drafts and then having it line up that way where you're on the clock and your best available player just so happens to be a stack. Because if you do it too much, it ends up so forced that you don't know whether you're forcing it or not. You know what I mean? You get that mindset. Like there's so many people that are so into stacking that at your pick, Jim, they would have, no matter what, 100% taken Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing too, is that what we've seen is that it drove last year. It drove the ADP of quarterbacks up. Superflex be damned. It drove the ADP of quarterbacks up because people were like really trying to force those stacks to happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna win this league though. By the way, just based on that turn. Based on that turn. So that's it though, right there, where it's two guys that I like, you know what I mean, that I'm not really reaching for, that I will absolutely take if the value's there in Travis Kelce and Jalen Hurts. And it was made really easy for me by Kismet, our guy Jack Strauss, sniping Mark Andrews, who I've made arguments for Mark Andrews at tight end 1. But it's, there's a whole group of guys that I believe could be the tight end 1 this year if things break right. Probably 5 or 6 or so guys. So for me, Travis Kelce, no problem taking him as a tight end 3 off the board. Doesn't even within the last half decade, that's just never even been a possibility. So I'll take that and also take Jalen Hurts. Not to mention, I can't let Jalen Hurts get back to Jim and make things too easy on you, Jim.
I would not have gone with the stack though. I typically want to wait a little bit on quarterbacks. Let me get this pick in here real quick here. Yeah. Throw a little Joe Mixon in there while we're at it.
Oh, love Joe.
Give me some thoughts. Give me some thoughts on Mixon here. Moving from Cincinnati, it's still obviously a strong passing game in Houston. They just added Stephon Diggs, but listen, we saw Devin Singletary have himself a tremendous year. Give me your thoughts on Mixon making this move. Change of scenery going to help?
Mixon is the great compiler. That's exactly what he is. You're getting the 4 yards a carry, but unlike Singletary was a boom bust runner. He'd get you a 0, he'd get you a 1, he'd get you a 9, and that doesn't help move the chains. But when they aggressively went to get Joe Mixon, it did tell me Bobby Slowick did not run the ball nearly as much as he wanted to because they couldn't. It wasn't a sustaining rushing attack. They leaned more on the pass. The Texans, they run the 2 running backs. That's a 21 personnel. They have Andrew Beck on the field an awful lot. And so you could see the same blueprint the 49ers and the Dolphins use. The Texans just couldn't run it to that level. Now with a running back that'll keep the offense on schedule, you'll get a 2, a 4, a 3, but that'll keep your offense on schedule. So Mixon has averaged 303 touches over the last 3 seasons, and he's averaged about 50 catches. Well, last year, Singletary and Pierce caught 43 passes. So I think we're still going to see that pass volume, the receiving game. Pierce is not a credible backup, so it's going to be another season of 300, and volume is fantasy football, and Mixon's good at goal. So there's going to be a lot of points scored there, so it's going to be a really nice opportunity at a cheap draft cost for Joe Mixon.
I love that, and I want to actually parlay that into another question I have for you, since all 3 of the Texans wide receivers are now off the board already. We talk about, you mentioned Andrew Beck, right? And he plays at least 20% of the snaps. I also saw a number of, beat writers for the Texans when Ben Skowronek was picked up by the team. They said, hey, this guy plays a little fullback too. With all those fullback snaps, who do you think ends up being the odd man out at wide receiver out of that crew for some of those 2 wide receiver sets?
Yeah, upset everybody, Jim. This is going to be the pass. I love that because
all 3 of these players have been picked.
You're going to pick somebody's like least favorite receiver or favorite receiver as being the odd man out, and they're going to flame you on Twitter. It just happens.
We set you up. So go ahead.
Well, look, if you bring in Stephon Diggs, we've seen the personality. You can't bench Stephon Diggs or he's going to like breed poison on the team. So they can't bench him. So when they run 2 receiver sets, Nico's a fixture. Nico was never not going to be the alpha even before he signed that contract. Well, Stephon Diggs is going to have to play because that's who he is. And he's still, I'm on the clock. Hang on. Crap. I'm going to do another running back.
Ooh, don't take my guy. Oh, you didn't. Okay, good.
All right. You guys got me again here.
So there it is. So I'm with you, man. And I tell you, so Lego my egos in the draft. It's at Jim Coventry NFL if you want to take him down for his Tank Dell hate. But I'm with you, man.
Right. But back to the Tank Dell situation, though, it's going to be really interesting for Dell because this year, had they not brought in Mixon, had they not brought in Diggs, I still thought there was going to be opportunities for defenses to put like a lid over the defense. Over the offense and really make it tough for Dell to make those big plays. But Dell could get a lot done on limited volume now because what we're going to see is defenses have to worry about Collins. They got to worry about Diggs. They got to worry about the running game. So even if we're going to see 40 snaps a game out of Dell, he could make a number of big plays. So I think he's the least desirable choice based on snaps, but I don't know that he's going to be a poor value where you're getting him because I think those will be some optimized touches.
Okay. All right. So, hey, you don't have to delete that tweet you were probably just drawing up where you're going to drag Jim on Twitter. You don't have to now.
Drag him. It's
drag
fun.
him now. No, you're right though. And again, like you say what you want. You got to think about the locker room, and you got to think about that room and who does what, right? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Diggs' attitude. You mentioned the contract for Nico Collins. How about the fact that Tank Dell, was left in there on a goal line set last year and he broke his leg? That's got to be in the back of their minds.
He's a tremendous blocker.
Yeah,
exactly. Like you want a smash block from your 4'3" slot
160.
160.
160. I think he's 168.
No way he weighs 160.
Yeah, that's what he weighed in. It may have been sugar weight at the combine, but that's whatever he weighed in, he won in 168. But yeah, you're right. It could be sugar weight. That happens.
One of my buddies who was undersized. His dad was the coach, and every year for the weigh-ins to make, because you had to be either above or below a certain weight. He pulled out all the tricks, dude. He had those fishing weights and is sewn into his pants. Like he'd walk around, you could hear a bunch of quarters jingling. You know what I mean? Like he was doing everything he could to get that extra pound in there. Like,
oh my God.
What? He always made weight. So.
The sugar weight.
Yeah, you gotta sneak him on. So.
Oh man, my boy Dakota Prescott fell to me. I did not think I was going to get him here.
Getting
on the Dak Prescott guy, huh?
So it's a real simple calculus here. If you remember last year, there was a week 5 bye that the Cowboys had, and it was very clear afterwards. The team, and believe it, I'm going to give Mike McCarthy some credit. I rarely do that, but they realized they lacked a sustaining rushing attack. They just couldn't consistently move the chains, went uber pass heavy the rest of the way. And Dak Prescott had 29 or more fantasy points in 7 of his last 12 games. That includes the playoff game. But all that said, this year you lose Pollard, you bring in Elliott. That running game's not getting better. So it's going to be that pass away game that they use. Ferguson another year in the offense. They optimize CD Lamb so well. They'd move him all over the formation, a lot in the slot, but they'd always find the mismatch for him. And it was just beautiful how they utilized him.
All right, so let me ask you this, because I can't fathom walking into a season with that backfield. I can't. And I don't want to drag I don't want to drag our good friend Rico Dowdle through the mud here, but Zeke is old and aging, and he's a short yardage guy. Yes, he's probably still a good pass blocker. But you got Zeke, you got Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn looks like he can fit in the pocket of Darren Sproles. They have to get a running back sometime between now and the start of the season. Do they not? Is there a running back out there who you might see like falling out of favor on his team where he could end up? I know that there's been a lot of talk about Denver possibly moving on from Javonte Williams, which to me would be an insane play for Dallas if they were to do that. But is there somebody out there who you think maybe Dallas is possibly targeting, or you think they're just going to sit here with this like patchwork backfield?
Their cap situation is not good. They had plenty of opportunities with that big free agent group to bring somebody in. They showed no inclination to do that. They didn't even use a draft pick on anybody of note. So to me, it was a very strong statement that they're going to live with the passing game. And I don't know why. I don't always know what Dallas is trying to accomplish, but I am not on board with it. But Howard, I don't see them making any big move for a running back. I just don't see it in the cards, and there really aren't going to be that many available, I don't think.
I was looking the other day, free agents, definitely not. But I mean, just the fact that you made a good point, Jim. Like, if you think about it, Joe Mixon was available for nothing via trade, right? Like, and the Bengals kind of have an incentive to trade him to the Cowboys instead of the Texans. You don't want to be making the Texans better in the AFC, right? So the fact that they didn't jump on that and a couple of the other options out there, I mean, even Zach Moss, he didn't sign a huge contract. A lot of these guys didn't sign massive contracts. So I don't know what it is. I'm with you, Howard. It feels like they didn't do enough, but they had every opportunity and they didn't do it. So I don't know. Maybe they'll roll with it. On the other part of this Cowboys team, we saw a guy come off the board already with Jake Ferguson. Who, if you had to pick one, who do you think gets more targets this year? Jake Ferguson, who got 100 last year, or Brandon Cooks, who kind of had a down year? If you had to pick one of those two, or even Jalen Tolbert, pick a wild card if you want. But who do you think is the second target on that team?
Yeah, I would like to see Tolbert emerge, but it's going to be Ferguson because he's just grown in the offense. Prescott is always preferred throwing to the middle of the field, throwing to the tight end. It's just a real natural progression of his game to go there, and the confidence that was gained with Ferguson, that's going to carry over. Cooks, he's in his 30s now, and there are very few players aside from quarterbacks at the skill positions that are in their 30s. So I don't think there's a bounce back coming for Cooks. And it's a lot of wish casting to see Tolbert turn into something special. I think he'll be better. He has to be better than what he was, but I don't think we could move him into that 100 target class and say all of a sudden, he's going to be a big deal. I think he could get a 700-yard season, Jalen Tolbert, which would be beautiful if he did that. But no, it's going to be, and I know you're always on this, Coop, the tight end being the second target in the offense. That's how I've identified it as well. It is all about the number 2 guy being Ferguson.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to discount Brandon Cooks. I think they definitely underutilized him, and you did see his target share start to climb a little bit. Mm-hmm. I love Jake Ferguson. There's no doubt about it. I was fighting with Jim Bowden on the Fantasy Alarm Show yesterday because he kept talking about Luke Schoonmaker. And I'm like, dude, stop it with the like that's just, to me, that's just wishful thinking, right? Like you're not going to get anything out of Schoonmaker that you're going to get out of Ferguson. So, for me, it was a tough call there, but I don't want to discount Brandon Cooks. And I do feel like he can, especially if there's going to be no backfield. He's got to be able to, they've got to utilize him more. You just have to.
If I was going to put together a highlight reel of every catch Luke Schoonmaker had in man-to-man in college, I could send it to you in a GIF.
Oh, dude, he was like, so listen, you guys know I love Jim, I adore Jim, but Jim, when he talks about his Cowboys, is just it's a bit much, and it's always a bit much, and so
it's the rose-colored glasses.
I'm not a Cowboys fan, guys. I'm not a Cowboys fan.
He was like, dude, he said to me something to the effect of, he was like, well, he got hurt last year, and so, he wasn't really utilized. I'm like, the dude played 17 games. And he made 8 catches on the year. Like, I'm looking at his snap percentage here. Like, stop telling me that he's suddenly going to be this, like, breakout tight. He's like, I'm not saying he's a breakout tight end. I'm just saying that he's going to take a lot of work away from Jake Ferguson this year. And I was like, no way. I couldn't do it. I love you, Jim, but no.
He could be the next Drew Sample,
Right. Schoonmaker's one of those inline tight ends who's got the mobility of a refrigerator.
Well,
And not one on wheels either.
enough talking about bums. Let's talk about stars. All
Oh, I
right?
thought you were gonna bring in a bum when with Seslowski, but no, okay.
You stole my thunder because I was going to call him a star. Howard called him a bum, and I guess that's how we got to treat the enemies today. So why don't we let him speak for himself? From RotoWire,
anything out of
Mr.
Oyster Bay, Long Island needs to go in the trash.
There he is. What's happening, brother?
Howard's treating me like I'm Hamas over here. What the hell is going on? I mean,
Oh
what
man,
the hell
here
is
we
going
go.
on here?
Political. No political.
Is anyone going to tell Jim Coventry that he's shouting into the microphone as loud as he can, breaking our freaking eardrums? Jim, move that damn mic away from your mouth. You're modulating. Who's producing this show, Howard?
Yeah, Ellen's my media guy, so there we have it.
See, too much time on.
Coop. It's the infighting that we're trying to create. We're being divisive here.
You spent too much time with those player profiler guys. I know that Matt Kelly keeps the very particular with the way it hits the ears. But I appreciate you stepping in and taking that role for us here, Alan.
Yeah, no, always good to hang with you guys. Listen to you guys regularly as you do your show. So this is long overdue to have this foursome, right? Want to swap partners? Here, you want to do a wife swap, Andrew?
Let's go, dude. Sunday.
Yeah.
Who gets what time slot? We're the Sunday morning swap.
You meant on the radio. Oh, okay. All right.
We can do it wherever you want.
Yeah. It's ladies' choice, whatever you guys want to do. But no, in all seriousness,
I just want to know who's pairing with who. Is it like me and Jim, or is it me and Alan? I want to know.
Let's just try all different pairs and see what where the chemistry lies. Hey, real quick, Andrew, you've done a gazillion of these drafts already, man. What do you think is the biggest difference between drafting strategy this year versus last year?
I mean, last year, this is what happens. It's cyclical, right? So quarterbacks come out and just win leagues, and people go crazy draft. Like the year that Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdown passes, or the year Cam Newton put on the Superman cape. And the very next year, quarterbacks, not just that quarterback, but all the quarterbacks get steamed up. And last year, we saw it. Second round, third round, quarterbacks were going. Everybody was trying to stack. They were obsessed with stacking. They were obsessed with quarterbacks. And you saw last year, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks off the board. This year, I think we're back to kind of the normal attitude with quarterbacks not really going as high, tight ends not going as high. And man, that's really filled the board with some orange, hasn't it, with the wide receivers this year, right?
Yeah. You can put together like 2 top 8 running backs in like the 3rd and 5th round. I mean, look, I know I went a little early on Rachaad White, right, Howard? But in the 3rd round, but he was a top 5 running back last year. And I mean, not much. I know the offensive coordinators changed, but he's still the guy there. So yeah, you have to adjust to where you're getting these guys. It's like when you do a super flex league, it's like, yeah, we could all wait on quarterback, but if everyone's going after those quarterbacks, you might have to pay like a 2nd round pick for Tua. I don't want to do that in a super flex league. You have to adjust to the market. I like that you said that.
Yeah. So you bring up an excellent point here, Alan, and that is Rachaad White, change of offensive coordinator. Tampa Bay they brought in Liam Cohen. Todd Bowles has said to Liam Cohen, obviously he's going to put his own spin on his offensive scheme. But he does say that he wants to have, a number of similarities between what they were doing, what they were running last year. Does Rachaad White, because if you look at the underlying metrics for Rachaad White, yards after contact and everything like that, the numbers really weren't that spectacular, but he did what he did, became a top 5 fantasy running back strictly out of volume. Do you see that volume continuing, or are you worried? Are you worried that Bucky Irving, now that, Liam Cohen now gets like his guy in there in the backfield, does that kind of affect Rachaad White's value?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all the reasons that you're pushing back on why the case for against, or not really against Rachaad White, but for reasonable skepticism is why he's going in the 3rd and 4th and sometimes 5th round, right? I mean, a player like this 8 years ago, Howard, would be like pick 1, 2, or 3 after being a top, right? I mean, that's the evolution of fantasy football. So I think all that risk is basically baked in. Again, I feel like I went a little early on him in round 3, but it's in best ball. What would we want? We want a guy that has a job. We don't want to take zeros on our bench. Like we love these players that we can get at the end of our redraft leagues when we're setting our lineups. Jim and I talk about this all the time, that you can wait until they get a clarified start and then put them in. In a best ball, everybody needs to be live, right? They can get into your lineup almost every week, especially in a league like this that's contained, where there's no overall prize. So I think that there's more value in Rachaad White. Not that I think he's going to be RB1, 2, or 3, but that he's an every week starter. He was already been good, regardless of the situation with volume or from his own skills. But I don't know. I watch football like you guys. To me, he looks like a good enough player to warrant a pick in that range.
With reasonable skepticism.
Yes, but that's why he's a 3rd or 4th round pick.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, which it's so hard to separate, especially in, after the NFL draft and dynasty season, where everybody tells you draft talent's all that matter. We've seen a million times that opportunity a lot of times ends up being king, right? Otherwise, there's a reason Chris Godwin didn't break out till year 3. There's a reason Jackson Smith and Jigba hasn't broken out yet. And there's a reason why a guy like Puka Nacua comes out of nowhere and has the season he has, right? You put him on a team behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett with Geno Smith, and he's good, but is he that good, right? It's an opportunity, ends up being king. So Rachaad White, if he can take that opportunity and run with it once again, I don't see why he wouldn't be a guy we take in that brings back value 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, wherever, right?
Howard, do you think that he's more Justin Forsett than he is a player that belongs in as a top 10 running back?
Who, White?
Yeah, not Forsett. Yeah, Forsett. You remember Forsett had that one?
Yeah.
year,
I remember. I mean, Forsett was, there was a different scheme and everything like that. I think if he continues to get the majority of volume, if he stays healthy and they just kind of, and they're going to ease Bucky Irving in, and I feel like you have to respect the fact that he's going to see, even if he gets 75 to 80% of the workload that he got last year, it was both in the passing and in the rushing game. So can he creep back into this? Can he be a top 10 running back? As long as he's got this backfield to the majority of it to himself, then yes. I mean, we're going to have to watch camp, because if we start seeing in camp that Bucky Irving is, shining bright, and all of a sudden, there's they're incorporating him more, Bucky Irving starts running with the ones a little bit more, then I worry. But, with the way that the backfield situation is just set up overall, with so many shared backfields out there, you got to put the respect on a guy who is going to get the majority of reps.
Yeah. Where are you guys on this Jaleel McLaughlin hype lately? He seems to have gone in a reasonable spot here, but I see him going in round 9 in some of these. So I'm just curious, is this like silliness? Or, it's one quote from Seslowsky exploded the entire universe on Jaleel McLaughlin.
I've been on both sides of it. I've been on both sides of it, where I can see, you look at the metrics and the explosiveness, and I talk to guys like Derek Brown, and they get into why they believe like he's going to take over. But then you look at the reality side of it, where it's like, you can't have a guy that size as your every down running back, right? Like, not to mention, we've seen this team on multiple occasions. Joe Lombardi has used 3 different backs and split out the targets between all 3 of them. Back with the Lions, he had three different guys get 50 targets. Last year, he had 2 guys get 50, 1 guy get 30. So for me, I just feel like the most likely outcome is it's going to be split, which means he can be a value. But this whole idea that they're going to release Javonte Williams and make Jaleel McLaughlin a bell cow back, it's just not, to me, at that size, it just doesn't even seem possible, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's, I'm in that same boat also. And, listen, as much as we enjoy Seslowsky when he joins us on Sirius XM, he's a hype guy.
Yeah.
Like he's a mouthpiece for the coach. And, and he's like, he's going to say things that, are super exciting, and maybe they're going to move the needle right now. But when it comes down to, like, once training camp starts, then everything that goes along with what, Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi are going to do is what it is. You can't, Jaleel McLaughlin, like, he's undersized. And while Audric Estime is, a good, like, between the tackles type guy, I don't know if he's ready. And we already know that Joe Lombardi in his system, he loves throwing to the running back. You get the full guy in Javonte Williams, a guy who can take it between the tackles and can do that. and can catch passes. He's healthy now. He's a full year removed from playing, recovering from a vicious knee injury. So yeah, I'm not buying into that hype there. I'm still in on Javonte for sure.
Yeah. Now I wanted to ask a question here, and I'm going to ask Jim because your partner in crime, Alan, just took Deshaun Watson. This is a player I considered with my last pick. I actually went with a stack, but Deshaun Watson, Jim, can he get back to greatness? If you take all quarterbacks all time, this guy top 5 in fantasy points, but as of late has not looked like that kind of player. Do you believe it's possible, and where do you kind of slot him in there?
From an NFL standpoint, as a passer, he could top out at top half. He could get there. We did see some signs in his last 2 games last year. The Arizona game, threw a couple touchdowns, looked good late against Baltimore in a big comeback. For fantasy, I do think there's a case to be made for Watson because he's on a 400-yard rushing pace in each of the years he's been with Cleveland. Again, not playing full seasons. So if you're going to tell me a quarterback's going to get me a 400-yard range and maybe even a little bit more, all of a sudden for fantasy, we're looking at somebody that's useful. But in terms of him getting back to those Houston days, too much time has passed. We would have seen it by now. But again, middling quarterback, I think we could get that out of him.
Which, I mean, where he's going, that's all you really need out of him. Especially in a best ball, you just need him to fill in for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and by the way, props to Jim Coventry for adjusting his mic on the fly. You sound like a gorgeous human being that you are now.
So thank you, Alan, because there's a dial on here, so I actually figured out, I can use this dial, so it helped.
Yeah, by the way, this is Howard, Andrew, this is what we do all day. At RotoWire, all I do is try to fix the tech issues of our podcasters that like basically it's like talking to your grandparents about email. No, push enter. Turn it off.
We've never had any tech issues here, have we, Howard?
Am I too close to my mic right now?
Yeah.
Am I too close?
Nice.
Yeah. This is where I play the intro for the 3rd time.
It's me and Coop sitting there, and then it's like,
yeah, we're
and
here
then the
to
intro
talk
plays.
ball. All right, you got to deal with the rest of it.
Hey, sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Nah, that's it. That was all of it.
So I noticed that you smiled when I brought up McLaughlin. Is that a hot button guy that you guys have been talking about a lot?
It's the Cecil Lammy thing. That's what it is, because it's like you've got these beat writers like in New England. Anybody up here knows, like, Alec Barth, Alan Lazard, those guys are beat writers. Like, they're just going to tell you the information. And then you have the talking heads, a number of them who used to be beat writers that come out and do the speculating and a little bit of the look at me stuff. That's why for me, certain guys, when I hear something coming from them that's presented as news, it makes me chuckle a little bit.
Right. So you don't take Dov Kleiman's word as news.
The thing is, though, getting mad at Dov Kleiman that's another one that honestly doesn't make sense. It's like getting mad at Reddit. It's like getting mad at Google.
Right.
All he's doing is repeating things that other people have said, like
amplifying.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, for me, you're getting mad at a robot, an aggregator.
So that's the edge in fantasy football. We're always trying to figure it out. It's knowing who is saying what.
Bingo. Exactly. And taking advantage of sentiment, right? Like, I love the old-timey NFL fans that don't play football. They don't play fantasy football, and they really like harp on leadership and, this guy's playing video games or whatever. It's like, that's how we can get values on some of these guys. Like the people that, that dog Kyler Murray, despite in fantasy football, him being a guy we can rely on and start every single week. It's like, I love that. I love those guys. I want to hear more. I love
playing against like people who like just eat up the hype train. Like we do that. We do a segment on that show all the time. Is like, is this hype or is this, where are we at? And, and it's so funny because when you track the ADP and you look at it, like since Seslowsky made that comment, Jaleel McLaughlin, and all of a sudden you've seen Javonte Williams and me, I'm like 100% here for it. It's like, I love watching that kind of ADP movement because it just enables you to take advantage of it. It's like, oh, sick. Javonte's not going until like the 8th or 9th round anyway. I don't have to take him now until the 10th round because everybody's like, oh, he's going to lose his job.
Right. Or you don't even have to, you could still take him in the ninth and not sweat it, right? Like if you just want to I think that's a really key point right there. But also it wasn't just that Cecil said the quote, it was that it got amplified by I got a sleeper notification with a quote. I mean, that's really what did it. Because if any one person says something, it's fine. It's when you see it on multiple things, it's like advertising 101, right? When it repeats, you start to believe it.
It's the best. It gets snowballed so hard, especially like Schefter. It happens to Schefter all the time because Schefter reports on stuff, but then he'll go on like the McAfee show and he'll say, well, if you're going to make me, speculate, then I'll say this. And then they take just that clip and they're like, Adam Schefter thinks that this guy could get murdered. You know what I mean? And then and then another person writes an article and they link, to the YouTube clip that says, oh, here's what Adam Schefter said. Right. But no one's clicking, no one's watching the video. They're just taking that face value. It is amazing. And it's our job to try and help separate that to some degree. Unless it's a player I like and the hype is positive, and then it's 100% fact.
The McLaughlin thing, when you bring it up, the team already told us what they thought. He was great for a short stretch last year, and then they immediately slashed his work. And that just tells you this is a small player who's not going to handle a large workload. We saw all we need. He's not changing. He's not going to put on 20 pounds and he'll be fast. That's not happening. So Jaleel McLaughlin is just a bit player. He could go on the stretching machine.
Oh, wait, that doesn't happen? My basketball career is toast.
So all right. So then let me ask this question then to Alan and to Jim, whoever wants to answer first. But I want to hear from both of you on this. Last year, Dan Campbell said, "I love having a guy who's going to go 15 to 20 carries and be my workhorse, and then the other guy serves as the complement and he gets the passing and whatever." And we saw that with the split last year. Is it really warranted that Jahmyr Gibbs is back end of the first round and then 8 rounds later, David Montgomery comes off the board? Like, I don't really understand. Like, Campbell laid it out for you last year and stuck to his word, at least until Montgomery got hurt. So why walking into it this year do we suddenly think it's going to be different?
Jim has a good take on this one. He talks about the split. I'll let you take it away here, Jim, but I want you to make sure you talk about like the last 6 or 8 weeks of the season here.
And I was just clicking my draft board and I heard the whole thing. Just remind me what player we're talking about and I'll answer it.
So forget Jim's good take on it. No,
I just tell me who we're talking about because I got the answer. I was clicking a player. Yeah,
it's
so
Jahmyr Gibbs versus David Montgomery.
No, I got it. So I had to remember because I was clicking a player. So what happened was it was after week 10, I believe. Montgomery was still getting carries, but his snap share declined significantly and Gibbs saw a massive increase. So we still saw Montgomery getting touches on limited snaps, but I think we began to see a world where Gibbs would be implemented more. But Howard, your question's great because in the first round, it is tricky because if they don't unlock Gibbs as a receiver, he was only, I believe, 20th or 28th percentile in the yards after the catch. And to me, that wasn't about his talent and skill set. It was about designing plays to get him in this. They didn't do a good job of that. And it could also be a Jared Goff thing too, because Goff has certain types of throws he doesn't make well. So all that said, you're right. It's very risky because the line, Montgomery's still going to be a factor there. We can't necessarily extrapolate those same amount of red zone touches that Gibbs had last year. So he's dangerous in the first round.
Yeah, and Howard, I just want to tag on to that, like almost like a layman's version of that. You are right. Jahmyr Gibbs is not your typical comfortable first round pick. Like Saquon Barkley, who goes 5 or 6 picks later. That's normally a player that you're like, okay, here's my foundational piece. So I'm with you in a little bit more of like the old school thought where I'd rather have Barkley as my first round pick at the end of the first round than someone like Gibbs, who's quote got league winning upside because of the concerns that you had. But in the second round, I mean, it seems like an arbitrary line to draw, right? 5 picks later, but in 5 picks is a lot when you're talking about the top 15.
Howard sniped me on Greg Dulcich, so I'm going to go.
You know what? I just need to say up yours, Jack, because Kismet took Theo Johnson right before I was going to grab him.
Yeah. It's that's what happens though, dude. You step in and
bullshit, man. I'm done.
Reach on Dulcich.
I'm out. It's it. I'm done. Finish with this trap. I'm gonna make one more pick and I'm out.
No, I'm out. Let's just give them the show. RotoWire guys, you
take.
the show. Why don't take me out of this? Don't ever do that again. I was like in the middle of talking.
I was giving them the show. It's their show.
Howard's the boss.
I knew it was going to happen this way, where the tight end sniping among the tight end whispering community. It was going to take the whole showdown, and we're going to have to give it to the RotoWire guys. So.
And I'll tell you what, I took Tyler Boyd with my pick. I was actually looking at Hayden Hurst. So I go to Alan Seslowski and I say, does Hayden Hurst, because we know, we know what Greg Roman does for the tight end in his offensive scheme. Is that behind the Hayden Hurst pick? Is this the year that Hayden Hurst actually does something for us?
Hey, here you go. Here's a fantasy football cliche for you. He's better in best ball, right? I mean, you know who's better in best ball, Howard? Everybody. Yeah, right. No, I mean, he's just a top. He's a tight end that's on top of the depth chart in a team that doesn't really have any established pass catchers, right? That's the case for him right there. I don't think anyone's excited to take him, but when I took two tight ends in my specific build here that were both a bye in week 12 with Kincaid and Conklin, I needed to have just a live body that, and pray to the Lord that he scores a touchdown in week 12. So nothing, no hard take on Hayden Hurst other than he's the top of the depth chart with a good quarterback. And you even brought in the Greg Roman thing. I'll add that to my spiel when I'm pitching Hayden Hurst now.
There you go. I like that. There it is. So you don't even have to quote me.
I'm total thievery. I'm taking it.
Yeah, and I've been digging around a little bit to see what else I can find, just to be sure. And it really has fallen that way. Like, Donald Parham blocked on like 20% of his pass plays last year. Will Disley, they asked him what he's there to do, and he said, "I'm here to be a mauler, and I work for Gus Edwards and the running backs." Right, and like that's not what you want to hear from your pass catching option, right? So I think it really is Hayden Hurst. And as much as I want Stone Smart to be a thing, I don't think he's going to be it. I don't think he's cut right for a Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offense, right? Like,
are you saying Stone is a dumb pick?
I mean,
Smart's a dumb pick.
Oh, nice.
Smart, dumb pick.
What you did.
Yeah, he just, what? As much as I think he's an interesting player, a converted quarterback into a wide receiver doesn't really fit the smash mouth mentality that they want to bring there, right? So, if he's gonna be a thing ever, might have to be a thing somewhere else.
You guys,
all right, well, look at this. Wrapping up the draft. Everything's kind of coming to a close. We got a couple of minutes left here in the show as well. So, I think we should just kind of go around the room and, top to bottom here, Jim, Alan, Coop, and then me. Thoughts on your team. I will happily scroll up to the top and start you off here. Jim Coventry, aka MVP 1986, because 86 was the last time he actually won a fantasy football league.
Oh,
it was 87. 1 year later, I won one. 87.
Good year.
USA Today stats. There you go.
Oh my God. So it wasn't necessarily the draft I was looking for, because I like to go receiver early. I didn't like the receivers on the board in the second round, so I pivoted off to Barkley. What I did like, and I didn't plan this, I have 4 running backs I like. I didn't need to get more because it's Barkley, Mixon, Aaron Jones, and Connor. And between them missing time, hopefully have 2 on the field each week. So I thought that was a pretty cool way to have a few running backs and be okay. And then receiver, like I said, I didn't go heavy early like I wanted to, but I believe I added enough of them in potential situations, especially in this best ball league, where they could chip in for me. So yeah, overall, it was a volume approach, and dumb pick at the end, but Derek Carr. But as a quarterback, sometimes you need that third quarterback in the Superflex league, and he might be a terrible quarterback. But we saw last week he'll have fantasy useful weeks on occasion.
Yeah, I don't hate the offensive scheme that they're going to be running there, in in New Orleans right now. I mean, because I like the fact that Dennis Allen kind of keeps his hands off of it. Right. Like he does. He's one of those few defensive coaches who understands that it's I need to let my offensive coordinator do his own thing. Like Dan Quinn will mess up Washington somehow. I guarantee it. But all right. Seslowski.
Yes.
Oyster Bay's finest. Talk to me here about your draft.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson at pick 7, that seems to be the elite player that nobody wants this year. So I'll certainly take him if he falls. And the quarterback uncertainty there. I mean, what if it's good, right? We always say, what if it's bad? But he's such a too big to fail player. So that's, you're always happy with that one. Devontae Adams, man, that's a boring pick that I hated making. But Jim sniped me on Saquon Barkley. But, like when you turn around, it's like, boring players are how you win contained leagues, right? Like for years, it was Tyler Lockett, Devontae Adams, those type of players. So Amari Cooper, those are the type of boring players. So I don't need to have the, ooh, you sniped me pick. So that's fine. And then we already talked about Rachaad White. And I guess Coop brought it up about a whole bunch of guys could finish as the tight end 1 overall in full PPR. This is half PPR. I'm assuming Dalton Kincaid is the top of that list for you guys at Fantasy Alarm.
Absolutely.
He is for me.
Yeah.
My
I
best
mean,
friend.
so it's so easy to see, like, even if he scores like 6 touchdowns, him being far and away the number 1 guy heading into next year. So Kincaid he probably should be, a late 3rd, early 4th round pick. I guess the half PPR hurts a little bit, but things only got better for Kincaid. And then the last thing I'll highlight in my draft, my masterful draft here, is Kyler Murray for me probably belongs above CJ Stroud, maybe even Patrick Mahomes for fantasy football. We saw, and then they add the next generational prospect in Marvin Harrison. So Kyler Murray's the guy I'm targeting in every draft this year, especially at the price of the 6th, 7th round. And I don't even know, that could even be a little bit early for him. You never could tell in best ball guys, because it's really a 2 quarterback league, even though it's single quarterback, because you need all these guys. You can't pick anyone up.
Exactly. Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson, that combination that you drafted here is my most rostered combination. So
great. You're a genius. See, I knew you were a genius.
Really?
I knew it.
Yeah, we're so smart, and now we're never going to draft again together, because I need to start. So glad we got this one done. Or maybe we'll draft a team together.
Yes, co-manage.
Co-manage.
Part of our wife swap experiment.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So for me, I'll just jump in
I
while
want
I'm
to be
talking.
with Jim.
Oh, you don't know what you're missing.
Well,
baby, I love you. I want to kiss that head of yours.
Mwah.
Whoa.
Very
We're really
lean it
going
in.
there now.
Get in there.
Andrew.
So for my squad, this team looks a lot different than my teams normally do, because I usually wait on quarterback and tight end and draft 3 because they fell to me. Travis Kelce as the tight end 3 and Jalen Hurts as the QB 3. I mean, both those guys are generally going 1 or 2. Because they fell to me there, I kind of went with a 2 QB, 2 tight end build. I just waited and drafted Hunter Henry, very safe. Baker Mayfield, very safe. And I already had Godwin and Mike Evans. So as much as we talked about not stacking, I sat there and said, well, that'll give me some floor. It'll actually give me some spike weeks when they all go off. Besides that, I really just took best available, which led me to some CMC, Devon Achane. I've already mentioned the Bucks. And then I took some stabs on upside for the format. Brian Thomas Jr., rookie. You want those, rookie stabs. I took Javon Baker later. Rashid Shaheed. This is the format for the Shaheed man, right? I went with Jerry Jeudy just to see if he's the second target there. Wan'Dale Robinson is a case to be the next slot guy that becomes an every down player. We'll have to see there. But that was my thought process, trying to mix in again. I was very safe early on with guys like Zach Moss and Tony Pollard, kind of boring. So later I went for rookies and upside plays, Tyrone Tracy, Ricky Pearsall, a little homer pick there with Javon Baker at the end, no big deal. But you don't know. We don't know who's going to be the guy in New England. So might as well try and figure it out. Try and take a stab with a last round pick, and hopefully you get the guy, if there is a guy.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if the strategy that you want to employ at the end of your draft is 2 Giants, a Patriot, and the Denver Bronco receiver that everybody hates. But, listen, that's
what could go wrong?
What could
possibly go wrong?
Week 17, nothing like that. Week 17, when again, this is a contained league, so I don't have to worry about championships. But nothing better than a Week 17 game where Greg Roman and the gang go up to a snowy New England. That's gonna be a real
I can't wait for that one there. The over-under is set at 12 already. 12. Very excited about that one.
What about you, Howard? What do you got? Wrap us up.
Okay, so the first and foremost thing, I've always been a big running back guy early. Everybody knows that. The fact that I could grab Josh Jacobs and Kenneth Walker here in 4 and 5 makes me only want to take wide receivers first now. If you all are going to give me that kind of value at running back pushed down in that fashion, then I'm happy to do it. I took Christian Watson, and then I was like, wow, Jordan Love is still available. All right, fine. I'll pair them up, knowing that I was going to do the Tua move over here. And again, I went with, that same thought process that Alan talks about and Jim talks about opportunity. Jacobs, number one running back in that format. Walker, number one running back there. Montgomery, still going to be a guy who's going to be utilized, in that fashion there. And then I took a little shot here at the running back position. Kamani Vidal, J.K. Dobbins, hopefully one of them does better than Gus Edwards. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. I do feel like everybody's forgetting about Michael Wilson. We're all in on Marvin Harrison Jr. We're all in on Trey McBride. Guess what? There needs to be a third pass catcher in that offense, and it's going to be Michael Wilson. So I kind of feel like people are sleeping on him there. And then Brendan Rice, just my last pick, because everybody loves Ladd McConkey. Love him, love him, love him, love him. This is Jerry Rice's kid, damn it. This kid's got a pedigree. His dad's teaching him the ropes. He's got great technical skills. I think he could develop. Maybe.
I like the Michael Wilson pick because we were just kind of talking on my timeline about what conditions. It's so rare to have three guys get 100 targets on the team, but the conditions where it does happen are good offense, bad defense, right? So the Cardinals kind of are coming in and fitting that build right now.
That's a true sleeper right there. I'm not being tongue in cheek here. You talk about a wide receiver in the double-digit rounds that can return like 5th round value every week starter in any format. I think Michael Wilson is the guy to target. That's a really good call, Howard.
Wilson started the season. He had over 50 yards, maybe 5 of his first 8 games, top of my head. And then when he got back from injury late with Kyler, he wasn't right the first 2 games, but the last 2 games, they clicked. So I'm with you guys that he is a great value player. I'm targeting well, and if you were in this draft, I probably would have ended up with him on my squad, but I think that's fantastic. Good call on it. He is going to be a deal, and I think McBride is the number 3 option, actually. I think Michael Wilson is legitimately going to be the number 2 option in the offense. McBride's going to take a big hit for fantasy because people think he's still going to get Superman targets. Well, that's probably not going to happen.
All right. Who didn't you draft him? Oh, it was Lego Man that drafted him.
There you have it. The RotoWire guys admit that Howard Bender and Fantasy Alarm have won the draft. The Michael Wilson pick, of course, being the last straw, the candle on top, the cherry on top. But in all seriousness, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you everybody in the chat for joining us. If you guys could hit like, subscribe, that costs you nothing. It really helps us out. If you really enjoy the stuff you see here and you want to help us out even further, go pick up a copy of that draft guide now or get an all-pro membership. Howard mentioned earlier at the top of the show, 50% off, and you get the best ball guide that's already out. The draft guides are coming out this week. You get the 1 month free. You can check it all out, get a little baseball talk, all that stuff that's going on right now. So help us out with that. And before we get you guys out of here, why don't you let everybody know what you got going on? Ooh, the big
Jim first.
Yeah. You can catch me at Jim Coventry NFL on X. 2 stats of the day, a little bit of instant analysis on those. Articles over at RotoWire. If you want a free look at what we have to offer, you want to go to rotowire.com/Jim. No credit card needed. But also, we've just launched up the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Please consider subscribing and jumping over there. Alan Seslowski's making sure we have a lot of content up there, and we always appreciate our friends at Fantasy Alarm. You guys are the best, and we love you.
Thanks, Jim. Alan, the floor is yours.
Sure. I'll promote that we're doing a dynasty-focused fantasy football show on SiriusXM next week. We'll be on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you love dynasty fantasy football, we're doing a couple episodes of the Dynasty Hour on SiriusXM. And also that we have a new Picks app out. So if you like the Pick'em games, guys, go to RotoWire Picks, download the free app, and it helps you make picks on all of those Pick'em sites if you love playing Pick'em games.
I love it.
Fantastic. Well, guys, yeah, thank you so much for being here, man. Always a pleasure to get to hang out with both of you. I feel like Sunday mornings on SiriusXM, there might be a lot of crossover work with you guys on our show and us on your show, and let's have some fun with it this season. I think we're gonna have a great time.
Wait, what is it? What, can you guys promote something here so we don't seem like chazes? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's
I just sold
talking
the
about,
draft
dude?
guides,
Just
all
the
that
draft
stuff. to all
guide.
pros.
There you go. There you go. Draft
there you go.
guide.
Just put it
coming
right
out
over
this
my face.
week.
That's pretty much what it is. And yeah,
There you go.
everybody knows I got an article that comes out. I do an article every single day that is front facing, free right now, and then behind the scenes, I just am chained to this desk. I was able to escape to Martha's Vineyard for a weekend, which was nice, but now we're back at it. Let's go.
So there it is. Well, thank you so much. RotoWire, Alan Seslowski, RotoWire's Jim Coventry. Give them both a follow on the Twitter machine. Again, we really appreciate you guys joining us here. Much love to the RotoWire family for sure. Again, catch Coop and I and all the NFL content that's coming out over at fantasyalarm.com. And yes, that draft guide, it drops next week. It's going to be good. For Andrew Cooper, Jim and Alan, I'm Howard Bender. This has been the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football. We'll catch you next.